Hi, everyone. My name is Colleen Hubert. Thank you for inviting me to share about a topic that I'm very passionate about, energy work in the body. I am a certified holistic health practitioner on my way to a naturopathic doctor. I'm also a certified Splankna practitioner and a stress indicator point system practitioner. So I have a couple of different methods that I use that deal with the energy systems of the body. Much of my talk today is based out of a book called Splankna by Sarah Thiessen. I'm going to share my screen with you and I'll go back and forth a few times, so bear with me. But of course, my little video place is in front of my present button. Okay. So this is energy systems and chakras from a Christian perspective. What are they and how do we respond to this ancient information? So this is a weird word, splankna. This is the cover of the book that I'm pulling this information from. So if you would like to research more, get this book. It's excellent. So for my story, I started in energy work about 3 years ago. I was in kind of a hopeless place with my daughter who had ADD, and we had tried everything. We had changed her diet. We had pulled her out of school. So she was homeschooling so that she could focus better. We had tried essential oils, which were helpful, but weren't getting to the root of it. We had finally resorted to Western med and tried her on that, and that caused her to become suicidal and incredibly depressed, and we just didn't know what else to do. Doctors had even said, you need to change your expectations of what life is going to be like for her, and because there's nothing else that can be done. And that wasn't okay. It wasn't something that we were okay with. And a friend of mine, who many of you guys know, Melinda Hawk, she's one of my best friends, she contacted me and said, I heard of a lady who can balance neurotransmitters just using her hands, and I think you should take your daughter to her. And as we talked more and more, she said, there's actually a class coming up in about 6 weeks, and I'm thinking about going to it to learn to do the balancing myself. And so I decided to join her at that class. It was a Touch for Health class, but it had a bonus day of how to balance neurotransmitters, hormones, how to remove food allergies and sensitivities, as well as balancing the chakras. I was all about that extra class because I wanted to be able to clear the food allergies. She had a gluten allergy. I wanted to be able to balance her neurotransmitters and her hormones. I have 4 daughters. She was my oldest. She was 13 at the time. And the chakras, I was a little leery about that part, but thought maybe I'll just ignore that part and just do all the other stuff. But what I learned that weekend changed my life, and it opened my eyes to see God in a new way. He's much bigger than the box that I had put him in at that time. And, I thought I had him figured out, but we don't ever. So let's talk a little bit about energy. I'll go back to screen sharing for this part. Last week, Max Hopkins talked to you about electrons, neutrons, and protons. So you can see here, this is a proton, one of those parts of an atom. So we have the electrons, neutrons, and protons. Within the protons, there are quarks and gluons. So you can see quarks are the little dots of light and gluons are in between. And these are the smallest parts of an atom as we know it now. And when we're talking about energy, energy is basically the force that causes all things to move. It's particularly electrons and these protons and neutrons, these atoms. We're all made up of atoms. And so energy forces our atoms to move, and when our atoms move, things happen. Atoms are always buzzing. They never stop moving. There's always electrons moving within them. These quarks and gluons as well are shifting and changing. And energy is what keeps that buzzing happening. As a Christian, I believe that in the beginning, God spoke all things into being. Ruach is the word used for it in the Old Testament. It's the breath of life. And we can't even fathom what that initially looked like. The vibration of his voice gave our world the energy that it needed to start to come together and form. When we look at energy, we must look at these little parts, these quantum physics parts of an atom. Quantum physics is the study of matter at this subatomic level, the very smallest part of creation that we have been able to explore. And it's also the study of the space between atoms, these huge gaps, huge being relative, these huge gaps between the atom particles and what is going on in that space. It's been pretty fascinating, some of the things that they found. In the quantum realm, the parts of the atoms don't follow the normal laws of Newtonian physics, like gravity and predictability. As Newton explained things, force equals mass times acceleration. We don't see that happening at the quantum level. There was a really cool study done where scientists split an atom and moved part of the atom to a location across the country. And when they messed with one part of the atom, the other part had the exact same response at that time. So one part of the atom showed a stress response, adding energy to it, it buzzed faster. And then the other part of the atom buzzed faster, even though nothing happened to that second part physically. This is called the entanglement theory, and there's some research being done on it. But Newtonian laws have no way of explaining how or why those parts of the atoms stay connected. It is so bizarre and yet so beautiful. Nothing is predictable at the quantum level. Another fascinating fact about quantum physics is that our intentions and our observations actually affect these subatomic quarks and gluons and change them. They change the atom and the way that the atom is responding. Our thoughts actually shift these atoms, which is how we get this mind body connection of anxiety settling in the stomach, anger settling in the liver, wrinkles of disappointment or wrinkles of joy. Those are like watermarks of the emotion attaching to your physical body. So, as we're talking about the body, we're going to look at some of the energetic systems within the body. Oops, there's my entanglement slide. It says it enables particles to affect each other across distance. Okay, so here's some of the electrical systems of the body that have energy running through them. We're all familiar with the nervous system, right? We have the spinal column, we have nerves going off of that, and then the brain. Okay, there's electrical impulses that move lots of information very quickly. This is a chart of brain waves. So our brain emits energy, and our skull actually acts like a cap, like a satellite dish, and pushes much of those electrical waves down into our body. So we have gamma, beta, alpha, theta being incredibly healing. This is our healing range, and delta, which is also healing, but theta is known, that 7 to 8 hertz is known to be very healing frequency for our bodies. Then we have something called nervetronics and glial cells. So this isn't a term that anybody's probably familiar with. It's fairly new. It was coined by Robert Becker and Ian Stubbings, and the nervetronic system, instead of moving very quickly like the nervous system, is very precise with little bits of information that that they think is responsible for the healing processes in our body. It has very strong effects on these glial cells. So these are nervous system cells called neurons, these yellow, gold. And you have microglia, you have oligodendrites, you have astrocytes, these green ones. So there's these different cells that go around the nerves and help support those nerves. Glial cells get their name because glial means glue. And so they thought that these cells just glued the nervous system together, like held it together. But now we're realizing that these cells actually feed and support the nervous system. These cells are what are responsible for making new nervous cells and tissue. We used to think that nerve cells could not regenerate, but they can when the glial cells are supported. Okay. And so there's another electrical system that actually supports all of these glial cells. Doesn't move quickly, but has a huge effect on our bodies. We also have what's called an aura, which is it's an electromagnetic field. So you can see it here in the picture. We are electrical beings. We have electricity running through us. And because of that, we have an electromagnetic field around our bodies. That holds a lot of our emotions. It holds a lot of our trauma. Okay, meridians are rivers of energy that flow through our bodies. So you can see there's all these lines of energy, and energy will move through this meridian system and touch every part of the body once in a 24-hour period. And so, and along this system, you can see there's little points or dots on the picture. And those are called acupoints that we can apply pressure, or people might use needles to adjust the energy within those systems. Now, these meridians have been scientifically proven to exist. In ancient China, they have been around. I mean, they've been around for thousands of years. We have like a statue that has the points on them that's a couple thousand years old. So we know that the Chinese have known about this system, but in the 1960s, there was a Korean scientist who actually mapped the meridians using more modern day technology. And so we have these meridian systems flowing through our bodies, supporting our being. There's 14 major meridians and several other minor meridians. And each of those little points acts like a tiny chakra. So let's talk about chakras next. So the chakra system, chakra means wheel in Sanskrit. So that's where that name comes from. This energy comes out of the body like tornadoes. You can see on the picture that there's these little funnels coming outward from the body on the front side, the back side, the top, and the bottom. And they feed the meridians from the bottom up. So as we talk about, Laura wanted me to spend a little bit of time on the chakras. That was the first class that I took. I was leery going into it, but came to realize that these are energy systems that God created to support our bodies and ourselves. And so I'm not going to be scared to learn about them. I'm careful. I'll talk about this more in a minute. I'm careful, but I still these exist. We can feel the effects of them. They carry a lot of our emotions. They carry a lot of our trauma that affect the shape of how they turn when they come out of our body, depending on our emotions. Okay, so we look at the different chakras, and almost every picture comes with somebody doing like a yoga pose. You don't have to do yoga to work on the chakras. Okay, root chakra is our lowest one. It's represented by the red. It is our connection to the earth, the way in which we ground ourselves. If you feel like you're flying around like crazy and don't know what to do, you're not grounded. Okay, so doing things to help ground you will support your root chakra, and it points down towards the ground. It deals a lot with our safety and our security. That's why it says here, basic trust. Then the sacral chakra, the next one up, deals a lot with our creativity, including procreation and sexuality. The next one, the yellow chakra here in the center of our abdomen, is our solar plexus, which is our power, our personal power, and the control that we have over our lives. The green dot represents the heart chakra, which is love. It's where our soul energy comes from. Hold on, something just happened. Let's try again. Okay, so it's where our soul energy comes from. And in a couple of modalities I've learned, we talk about the soul being where the spirit, which is considered these upper levels, the spirit meets the physical body on these lower levels. It's a combination between them. And many modalities consider that the soul is what holds the spirit to the actual body. And so we see that in this midpoint. And this is where a lot of our relationships come from love, joy, hate, the way that we interact with other people, our heartstrings. The next chakra up is the throat chakra. It has to do with our communication, right? Our expression, the way that we speak. If I have someone that cannot sing or cannot express themselves, I'm going to check their throat chakra. Someone's probably told them to be quiet in the past, or insulted their voice, and it shut off their chakra and they cannot sing or they cannot speak truth. The third eye chakra is above, like between the eyebrows, slightly above the eyebrows there. And it deals with the way that you perceive the world. Um, the seat of intuition, the seat of knowing. The crown chakra at the top is this violet dot, and it is our connection to God and to connection to our life's purpose. Are we doing our life's purpose or not? Are we in the will of God and what He desires for us? So these systems, it's been fascinating to work with them and see how they affect people. And I have no doubt that these energetic systems exist. Oh, I forgot the last one. The last one is the Nadi system. The Nadi system is closely related to the chakras. So you can see the chakra planes. This is root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and crown. But they weave in and up and through the chakras. They're an extensive network of fluid-like energies that parallel the body's nervous system and link the chakras to the brain. Okay. So yeah, as I was saying, I believe that these energetic systems were created by God, but because they are invisible and we haven't yet created ways to measure them, we don't always believe that they exist. I believe as our technology improves, we will see more evidence of them. Okay, so as I've worked with these systems, I get a lot of objections, particularly from Christians. I have been called a witch several times behind my back. No one's ever said it to me in person, because people can understand that I can do things to make them feel better by using my hands, which is a really sad place to be. Sarah Thiessen says to this that witchcraft is a pursuit of special knowledge or power outside of God, a worshiping of the created as opposed to the creator, right? Looking to stones, looking to herbs or our own the created things to save us, to heal us, as opposed to looking to the creator himself. And Sarah also made the comment that what makes something witchcraft is not a particular act, it's the idolatry and rebellion behind those acts. Because we see in the Bible that there are several activities that today we would probably say is kind of witchcrafty. The casting of lots, cursing and blessing. We see Jesus curse a fig tree and it shrivels up. And yet he tells the disciples, if you had as much faith, you could move that mountain into the ocean. He's telling them, with faith, you can move things without touching them. We see Jesus' garments also emitting healing power from his being without him touching people. Moses' magic, the bronze serpent on a pole, the Urim and Thummim of the Old Testament, which can all be confusing, but these people were acting in accordance with God's will, not outside of it. So we tend to want to stick with, there's good actions and evil actions. There's rules that we can follow. There's a line, and if I stay on this side, I'm a Christian, and if I go to this side, I'm not, in our actions. But what God says is that it's all about our heart. Are we giving God glory and honor? Are we looking to him to do the work? So if I do energy work because I want to affect change and make things go the way that I want to, that I think they should go, without acknowledging God and his will and his divine knowledge and authority, then I'm running a close line of thinking that I am God and that I know what's best. And that I have to hold very loosely. I don't want to cross that line. Satan tends to twist that everything that God has made. You think about all the atrocities that have been justified by scripture and the way that Satan even used scripture to tempt Jesus in the desert. But we wouldn't say that because he used the scripture, it made the scripture evil. So it's the same, and it's not reasonable to say that energy work or muscle testing is evil when the energetic systems were created by God. Just because they were kept alive by Eastern ideology over the years, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be working on them. Satan would love nothing better than to keep us from doing this work and maintaining these systems that hold our emotions and our memories and our minds. So that's why I wrap all my sessions in prayer, to keep myself within God's boundary, to not forget that I am not the healer, that God is. I also get a lot of pushback that this is all new age. And I like to ask people, what is new age? Do you know what new age is? And it holds the idea that all is one. We are in God, so we are God. We have all knowledge and power, and it's just waiting to be unleashed, which sounds an awful lot like the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? Um, there's, but then they would say that there is no good or evil because we are all God, and God can't be evil. Truth is found within each person, so they all know the truth that they need to know. But if all is one, then relationships no longer matter. Think of how much depression is going on right now. There's no community because we don't need it, because we all have God and we all are one. Many cases of cancer tend to occur when people go through trauma and have no one to share or process it with. We see Satan dividing us, individualizing us. We're not working together. We're not coming together in the ways that we used to. And I don't have to, I like this. I put this quote on here. If all are one and all are God, then there's no worship. There's no need for it. There's no submission or authority. There's no repentance of sin because there's no evil. There's no surrender and there's no trust. So I don't have to trust anyone because I'm God and we're all one. So I just stay isolated by myself because I don't need anybody else, which is such a sad, sad thought. This thought process leads to a life without hope. And think about how many people you know that are hopeless right now. I believe that there is good and evil. I see it daily in the clients that I work with, especially with trauma. The vile experiences that they've lived through are purely evil. Satan taking things and twisting it. He doesn't want us working on energetic systems. And so he gives us this idea that it's new age, that it is ancient, that, it comes out of Hinduism. But I believe that it was created at creation. Our energy systems have been there since the beginning of time. Hinduism has just kept it going. And so I am thankful that they've kept this knowledge around. Okay, talking about, some people say that energy work is not biblical. I cannot say a time necessarily in the Bible that I could think of that does energy work in the way that we do it. But what New Age calls vital energy or prana or chi, we would call the breath of life that I mentioned earlier. This ruach, the spirit or breath that appears in the Old Testament over 300 times. When ruach, the breath of life, is removed, a person will die. There's also the word kai, which means living in life. There's pneuma, which is the New Testament form of ruach, breath of life or spirit. And then there's logos. In the beginning was logos, the word, which at that time was the supreme governing principle. John blew his readers' minds when he said, this universal governing principle is Jesus the Christ. He rules and he initiates all things. And what I found is many Christians tend to assume that because the energy ideas are associated with this new age or Hinduism or Buddhist and Eastern religions, they say they're bad, they're evil, instead of thinking critically about what those things are. So I don't believe that I know all things. And I do believe that we were created with these systems that need to be acknowledged. They need to be cared for just as much as our physical bodies. So I would encourage you to delve in and do your own research. I'm going to stop sharing. Save me a second. Delve in and do your own research. Look for scientific information, not just opinions. Step out in faith where God leads you. Don't live in fear of these energy systems and these ideas. There have been times that people have brought me information. This last week, someone told me I needed to read a book by a certain person. I prayed about it and I said no. I don't feel like that would be helpful or healthy for me. So I try not to open myself up to unhealthy things, but I've also seen absolutely beautiful ways that God has revealed himself and that he's revealed his power and his authority through these new age energy systems of chakras and nadis and meridians. So I encourage you to pray, to seek, to be curious, and allow God to reveal himself to you in these ways. Um, Write any questions that you have in the comments, and we'll chat in just a minute.
That was excellent.
I think you're still recording.
That's okay.
Okay.
I wanted to quickly get a comment from you and maybe add it at the end.
Sure.
Well, okay, so the delta waves. It was interesting that you showed the alpha waves and the everything. I think that's really fascinating. So Ryan Watson, I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. He's someone we became acquainted through Young Living, but he does neurofeedback out in Amarillo.
Mm-hmm.
He measures all the waves.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that he said was interesting was talk therapy. A lot of people put a lot of value in talking and working through problems and stuff, but he said that delta waves, of course, they're the slower, and he
Mm-hmm.
kind of likened it to the water and the temperature outside. It's spring and it's warmer, but we're not going to go swimming yet because it's cold. The water's cold. It takes longer for that water to change. And he said that's kind of what delta waves are. They are a more slower, gradual change versus he said when he watches the delta waves on neurofeedback, he was astonished with essential oils because they changed the delta waves almost immediately. Whereas, and the same thing, I'm sure, with if you were to measure delta waves before and after Splankna. I don't know if that has ever done that.
I have not measured delta waves, but what happens that we joke about, that energy practitioners tend to joke about, is that when I start doing energy work on people, they get incredibly tired. So remember, delta waves are that like deep sleep, and our bodies heal when we sleep. Like that's the number one best time to heal is overnight. So but when people are laying on my table, I'm muscle testing them, not as much with Splankna, but when I use the stress indicator point system, where they don't have to be as responsive to me, because Splankna, we're talking a lot while I'm doing the energy work, but SIPS is just, I'm just holding points and pulsing points on the body. So many people fall asleep.
They fall asleep.
It's because their body actually shifts into the theta delta, the wave linked, in order to shift that energy.
Wow.
And they'll say, I just got so tired. And and then a lot of times they'll say, well, it's afternoon, because I see people after lunch. It's afternoon, so I'm going to go to sleep. I'm just tired. I ate lunch. But it'll happen over and over again to people that they will go to sleep when I'm doing SIPs because I'm not talking to them. As long as I'm talking, we're staying in the upper waves. But when I stop talking and it's quiet, they tend to go to sleep. And then they notice bigger changes the next day after they've had a night of sleep. Like the body is calling for those delta theta waves in order to shift and do the healing. So I've never measured it, but I see it happening all the time. So do the essential oils, you said that they cause you to go into more delta waves?
No, what he said was what we specifically did was we worked with Audrey with him. This was when she was, oh goodness, it's been 8 years ago, maybe. It's that 7 or 8 years ago. And she Ryan, we had gone through Amarillo a few times and he was just like, I got to show you my new toy. And it was
Mhm.
like when he does his counseling. And so he works with a lot of traumatic brain injuries. His real focus is working with the brain and helping with nutrition. And so when his sister introduced him to oils, he started kind of playing around with it to see how that would fit into what everything else he did.
Right.
And he so with Audrey, we had her sit down, and because had been having trouble with retention in school, and I would read a story to her, and it was like, I have no idea what you just said, or we're doing spelling
Mhm.
work. So he triggered in on a emotion that she had a basically a traumatic event, is that she ran the go-kart into the house, because Jonathan told her to take it to the go put it in the trailer, to drive it around the house and put it in the trailer, but the back end of the trailer wasn't down. So her decision making skills were, it's not down, so I'm going to just keep riding around. I don't know where to go. And she panicked and ran into the side of the house because she could have just stopped and waited.
Right.
Right then in that moment, it was like she just kind of panicked. And Jonathan tells the story later because in the middle of this, she was fine. She had the hat cap on, and you could see her. Everything. He sits you down, and you can see the waves like bouncing,
Uh-huh.
and it's really kind of cool. And then he told her she started itching everywhere.
Mhm.
That, and it was um, because he said, I don't like to put labels or say ADHD, or I just
Yeah.
like to say, let's work in this situation and stuff. But he goes, do you think that she got itchy? She smelled oil. That's what it was. We did normal, and then she smelled frankincense. And he wanted us to see the differences in the brain waves when it
Mhm.
happened.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, then she started itching. And so I got some lotion, and they stepped out for a second, and I helped her put it all over. And he's in the hallway talking to John. He goes, do you think she just got itchy all of a sudden? Or do you think her brain was stopped enough to recognize that,
Right.
oh, I'm itchy? And so her brain was so he talked Jonathan through the process. And actually, what ended up happening was Jonathan said he was sorry because he yelled at her for running into the side of the house and was very upset with her. He goes, I'm going to be a real good dad. I'm not going to spank her. I'm just going to gripe at her and yell at her, and then she'll never forget. The type stuff we do, that we go into that response mode too. And
Yeah.
so they both started crying there in the office, and Ryan's looking at me and he's like, I love what I do. So he was showing us how the different waves and what the delta waves actually sped. It changed the wave length. It changed how the delta wave was responding, and it wasn't in a slow. She didn't get sleepy or anything, but it was just the response of the brain wave changed. And he goes, it's really, you don't see a wave changing like that. They're just so much slower to move.
Mhm.
And so that was, we were just watching it on the screen as it happened. That was
Yeah.
why he. So,
You could see
so
it.
it'd be interesting to me. I'm sitting here going, I would love. Could you do Splunk and biofeedback at the same, and the neurofeedback at the same time, or before and after, to see what is changed in I think that would be fascinating to see, and or
Um,
even the acupuncture, the SIPs.
yeah. I had one client that it was really fascinating as I was working on her son. He had diabetes,